Now it's time for my 2 cents worth about Season 2. Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is Asha Media TV. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Asha, and this is where I like to watch, react, and review a variety of stuff related to sci-fi, fantasy, and comic books. So, in today's video, it shouldn't surprise you, I am now going to give you my ranking of the episodes from Season 2 of The Expanse. But before I get started, let me just cover a few bases first. Number one, just in case you missed it in the title, there are spoilers in this video related to Season 2 of The Expanse and possibly Season 1, because those are the only 2 seasons I've watched so far. But either way, the point is, there are spoilers ahead. Secondly, I just want to give another huge thank you to all of you at Asha Media Club and to those of you here subscribed to my channel at Asha Media TV. Thank you for your comments and your wonderful tidbits of information related to my reaction to some of the funny videos I posted about The Expanse, as well as my ranking for Season 1. I really appreciate it. Okay, so now that I've covered the basic stuff, let's dive in a little bit deeper about my process with ranking these episodes from Season 2. Now, my goal with this video is to keep it short and sweet, so I'm not going to dive in too much with details about each episode. I'm simply going to share my ranking of the episode, the title of the episode, up to 3 notable, slash memorable moments, and the most shocking moment of the episode. So, without further ado, let's get rolling with my ranking. And since there are 13 episodes in Season 2, we're going to start with my pick at number 13, which is Episode 1, Safe. A few notable moments for me were, number 1, Holden and Naomi having some spicy time. Who didn't like that, huh? Who didn't like that? Number 2, Miller tries to fight Amos to avenge the death of his friend Semi, but pretty much almost gets his ass whooped to death if it wasn't for Naomi intervening. And number 3, the surprise dinner at the end, prepared by Alex, and to which Miller seems to become officially part of the Rossi crew. All these moments are pretty cool, and in this first episode of the second season, I was also introduced to Bobby and the Marines and all that. But for me, the most shocking moment in this episode is the failed attempt on Christian Avasarala's life. By this point, I was absolutely in love with the character of Christian. So to see her in such clear and present danger was super alarming for me. And I kind of saw that as maybe a foreshadowing of something really terrible happening to her, which thus far I'm glad to see hasn't happened yet. At number 12, Episode 9, The Weeping Somnambulist. One particular notable moment for me from this episode is when Holden and the crew try to save Melissa and her husband from pirate thugs, only to accidentally cause the death of her husband. Melissa's rageful grief was indeed heartbreaking to watch. But the most shocking moment I'll remember from Episode 9 is Dr. Iturbi and Janice's discovery of the crater on Venus, caused by the impact of the Eros asteroid. Honestly, because Episode 5 was also the end of the narrative from Book 1, I thought the whole thing with Eros, colliding into Venus was done. And so, imagine my surprise when all of a sudden, there's a crater on Venus and there's more of that development of the story. At number 11, Episode 3, Static. One of the best moments from this episode for me is watching Amos get through to Cortazar by cleverly appealing to his obsession with the protomolecule. But the most shocking moment for me from Episode 3 is when Miller convinces Fred to use the Mormons' Nauvoo ship as a means to destroy the proto-infected Eros. This whole scene was so unexpected, because Miller had been rejected from the Rossi crew, Fred didn't want nothing to do with him, and then he goes off to visit the Mormon church area, whatever, the chapel, And he's exploring the ship. He's asking questions about their 100-year journey. So I'm thinking, okay, is he ready to convert to Mormonism? And maybe that's going to be a new narrative for this character. So of course, imagine my shock when Miller is like, you know what? Instead of spending 100 years on this ship, can I borrow it to like crash it into an asteroid? At number 10, episode 7, The Seventh Man. A couple of key moments from this episode was number 1, Anderson Dawes fishing around for clues about Fred's secret weapon. I loved how he went from Naomi and Holden, who was like, no thanks, then Drummer, who was like, hell no, and lastly to Diogo, who did not hesitate to be like, fuck yeah, I am in. And number 2, the thrilling moment when Bobby remembered seeing a seventh man on Ganymede when her crew was attacked. But the most shocking moment for me in episode 7 is when Dawes kidnaps the scientist Cortazar and successfully gets away with it by using Diogo as a decoy. So there's a couple of reasons why this particular unraveling of this scene was very surprising to me. Number 1, I actually kind of forgot, or I think I wasn't aware that Diogo knew about the scientist Cortazar. So it was like, oh my goodness, they found out about him and they kidnapped him. And then, of course, the clever way to which Dawes actually diverted the attention of the Rossi crew chasing him down by using Diogo as a really awesome decoy. I thought that was brilliant. At number 9, episode 10, Cascade. Now, if you watched my reaction to this episode, you know there was a lot of laughter, especially around one particular set of scenes. And first scene I'm talking about is the introduction to Chicken Man. I need chicken. I only take chicken. And second, like a cherry on top of a cake, Amos giving him a serious beatdown with a can of chicken. It was one of the most hilarious things I'd ever seen on TV. Because I'd like you to tell me what other TV show has a man beating up someone else with a can of chicken. Tell me in the comments. But the most shocking moment for me from episode 10 is when Christian and Cotillard show Bobby the details of Project Caliban. And we see for the first time the proto-hybrid creature that attacked her and her crew on Ganymede. Listen, when Bobby first saw that creature, I was floored and thinking of all kinds of shit. I was like, it's aliens! So for me, it was even more horrifying that it actually wasn't aliens and it was a deliberate creation from mankind of a humanoid or hybrid creature with the proto-molecule. That's some crazy shit. At number 8, episode 11, Here There Be Dragons. A cool sequence of moments that's unforgettable from this episode is when Bobby confronts and punches Captain Martins, then eventually tries to escape and ends up being saved by requesting asylum on Earth. However, the most shocking moment for me in episode 11 is when a grenade is thrown at the Rossi crew. Amos notices it and quickly throws it back in the room to which it came from. That moment cracked me up so much that during my reaction, I had to pause and rewind to watch it again. I don't know, there's just something hilarious about the way Amos sees the bomb and he just chucks it and like it detonates in the other room. I don't know. Tell me in the comments if you laughed at that too, because I found it freaking hilarious. At number 7, episode 4, Godspeed. Without a doubt, there's a lot going on in this episode. But for the sake of brevity for this video, here are 2 memorable moments. Number 1, Holden's difficult decision to destroy the Maramos ship. Number 2, Miller's sacrifice to stay on Eros with a ticking time bomb at hand. So, it should not come as a surprise that the most shocking moment I'll remember from episode 4 is when the proto-infected Eros asteroid moves out of the way to avoid the Navu's oncoming impact. Seriously, by the end of this episode, was there anything more shocking than a stationary asteroid spontaneously becoming a moving craft? I don't think so. At number 6, episode 6, Paradigm Shift. In this episode, here are some memorable moments. Number 1, when Naomi lies to Holden and deceptively hides the torpedo housing the protomolecule sample. Number 2, Christian Avasarala unleashing her fury to Sadavir about destroying Jules Pierre Mao. And number 3, meeting Solomon Epstein and the whole backstory related to the Epstein Drive. And the most shocking moment from episode 6 is when Bobby and her team are attacked on the borderlines on Ganymede Station. Right before Bobby loses consciousness, she sees through her helmet a blue glowing figure standing right above her. And y'all know that was a huge shock for me, as I previously mentioned, because I was literally going into, oh my God, aliens, 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 ah! So it was a shock, for sure. At number 5, episode 2, Doors and Corners. One of the funniest moments from this episode that I definitely won't forget is when Alex was complaining to Amos in a bar, and then he turns around and sees a woman who tells him Amos paid her to listen to him whine. Just thinking about that moment still cracks me up, because Alex's face, he was just like, oh, go figure, Amos would do that. And at the same time, he looked like he was like, okay, maybe I'll entertain this woman anyway. But without a doubt, the most shocking moment in this episode is when Miller kills Dresden. Now, if you go back to my reaction to that episode and that particular moment, you know the level of shock that came over me. I really was just like, why, Miller? Why did you do that? I was thinking along the same lines as Holden, that I felt Miller had no right to do that at that moment. They could have gotten more information. Again, I'm not into the whole, shoot first, ask questions later kind of thing. It's the opposite. So although I did eventually come to understand Miller's rationale behind his decision to kill Dresden, I still think he should have not done that. And so, yeah, it's definitely one of the most shocking moments I won't forget. At number 4, episode 5, Home. A very notable moment in this episode for me was the news of Eros moving faster on a path to collide with Earth and all the subsequent scenes that followed. But, of course, I think it's fair to say that the most shocking moment from episode 5 is when Miller finds a proto-version of Julie and chooses to merge with her to help her steer Eros to crash on Venus instead. Now, if you're new to my channel and this is the first time you're watching me talk about The Expanse and you're freaked out and surprised that I've ranked this episode where I've put it, hear me out before you go ranting in the comment section, okay? When it came to watching episodes 3, 4, and 5, I made the grave mistake of watching them back to back. So by the time I had reached the ending of this episode, I was so drained out emotionally to fully really appreciate the epicness that was going on before my very eyes. Even on a second rewatch, I still couldn't feel as much as I wanted to because my first impression was so greatly influenced by my binge watching, which was a huge mistake, but it is what it is, and that's why I cannot rank this episode any higher if I'm going to be truthful. At number 3, episode 12, The Monster and the Rocket. One of the best moments that I won't forget from this episode is how Sadavir kills Korshunov. But without a doubt, the most shocking and surprising moment from episode 12 is when the crowd control guy, Champa, says to Naomi, "You're not finished yet." Simply put, it's scenes like that with Naomi and Champa that increases my genuine appreciation and love for this show. Period. All right, I'm down to my last 2 episode choices. So if you've been paying attention, you should know which one's going to be the toss-up. Make your bets now. Make your farmer's bet now. You ready? Here's my pick at number 2. Episode 13, Caliban's War. If you watched my reaction to this episode, you know that I was crying my eyes out. Not out of sadness, but out of laughter. So it should not come to you as any surprise what the funniest moment for me in this episode was. that I had to put it at number 2, people. I just had to. And that scene was when Christian prevents Cotillard from going into shock and his hilarious reaction to her. Up until this point, as I'm recording this video, I have gone back to watch that one scene, just that one sequence between the two of them, 4 times. I love it so much. In fact, I think I'm going to make just like a looped video of just that moment. It kills me. It just kills me. And the next amazing moment to watch was the mysterious breaking apart of the Arbogast as it descended into the crater on Venus. And lastly, another memorable moment is the end where we see May is alive. She's alive, people. Yay! But as good and great as those scenes were from episode 13, it still doesn't beat what I consider to be the most shocking moment, and that is the death of the protomolecule hybrid. Beat for beat, moment by moment, all the scenes that led up to the killing of the hybrid were amazing. But the visual that was shown on screen of this hybrid's disintegration, a masterpiece. Here we are, my number 1 pick. If you were paying attention, you know what it is. That is episode 8, Pyre. The 2 most memorable moments from this episode are, number 1, when Stas and Eden storm Tycho's control deck demanding the nukes be given over to them. Then number 2, Drummer getting viciously shot in the gut and her righteous execution of Stas and Eden. All of that was too dope to forget. But as for the most shocking moment in this episode that merited for me for it to be on my number 1 spot is Doris's horrific death by the hands of a heartless belter. To say I was just simply shocked with Doris's death and the way it happened is kind of an understatement, because if you watch my reaction, I was more than shocked. I was floored. I was sad. And I was really angry, because that level of cruelty is on a spectrum that's just so unacceptable, so unforgivable for me personally. And so that's why I had to rank this episode as my number 1, because every time I see Prax on screen, I think of Doris, and I think about the way she died, and I think about how I felt watching her die that way. And so that's why I couldn't deny that this is my top favorite episode for its shock value, because watching that shocking death still stays with me emotionally with this season. So there you have it. That is my ranking of all 13 episodes of the 2nd season of The Expanse. Let me know in the comments which ones you would have picked if you're willing to do so. I'd be really curious to know. Or at least what are your top 3 episode picks from season 2. If you enjoyed this video, the best way you can let me know is by following the prompt you see there on the screen. This right here. Yeah, I know you see it. I know you see it. Just click on it, okay? Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And stay tuned for my upload of my reaction to season 3 of The Expanse, episode 1. But until then, I'm Asha, tuning out. Peace. Thanks for watching. Check out my other videos and subscribe. You know you wanna.